Alright, hey everyone. In this episode of Let's Edit a Montage, instead of doing a time lapse, I'm actually just going to, in real time, do my color correction. This whole episode is about color correction, so I'm not going to speed it up. You're just going to go through it with me at the regular pace. That means it might be a longer video. If you just want to see the update and the final color correction, look down in the timeline and you'll be able to see a timestamp on when you can cut forward and see it. So here's my timeline. It's very messy, but that's what we're working with right now. And usually for a lot of my montages, I do the color correction here in Adobe Premiere using Magic Bullet Looks and Magic Bullet Mojo and the built-in color correction in Premiere here. For Snipe Down's montage, I actually used DaVinci Resolve, had it looking really good on the right monitors, and then when it came out to everyone's basic at-home monitors with YouTube's compression, it didn't look that good. So here we're just going to use the tools in Resolve, and my first thing I'm going to do is set a default color correction over everything. There's a lot of birds going crazy. Let me mute this actually so I don't hear that. And I'm gonna create the default color correction over a Halo 3 clip, specifically one on narrows probably. Or maybe do one on the pit because there's a few pit clips. Okay, we'll just start here. So you can't see my second monitor, but I've been using a second monitor here. I'm just gonna right click, go new item, adjustment layer. Make sure it's right. A lot of these clips aren't 1080p, aren't 60 FPS, so we're using what we have. Now I can slap that back over there. I have the adjustment layer above everything besides the names and keep the names at the top. Now I can just slap on, I moved my cursor, damn it. I can just slap on a color correction I made before, and first thing we're gonna do is do that. So let me slap on, just for fun, this is what the frosty one was. So just like subtly a little more color correction there. See before and after. I didn't do much. Some maps are obviously going to be way different than others. It's fun to see what old montage color correction looks like. Excuse me on some of these. I just chugged an energy drink. Let's turn it off. So, and this is the color correction I've been using lately. I just call it Valorant, but I think it works on everything. A little way too strong here. A lot of times I make these color correction presets like this, put it on adjustment layer, then turn down the adjustment layer to like 75 or something. And that looks pretty good, honestly. But we should do a little more than that. See, it doesn't even look like there's color correction there, but they're just slight. So, let's start from scratch just for fun. We can walk through everything here. So let's go back to one of these clips. All right, so I'm going to go to color, the color tab at the top, and the first thing I'm going to do is play with the Lumetri color, which is the default built-in one here. And what I want to do mainly with just this one is let's make everything a little brighter. Make sure to bring up your scopes. Now it's going to be a little different because I'm doing a base color correction over everything, so the scope for this particular spot doesn't matter as much, but I'm just going to bring everything up slightly. Let's bring shadows up a little, and not too much of the blacks. But the main thing I wanted to do here was go into creative and find my vibrance and turn that up. I want it to be more colorful. So I put it up to like 65, and my color, or in my saturation, I'm only going to go up a little bit, so like 115. Play around with, so it just makes it brighter and more saturated. That might be a bit too much saturation, but I kind of like it. So before, after, just slightly. So that's all I wanted to do with the first color correction, like the first effect on here. You see this map is crazy green. That's could be a problem, but it depends what you're going for. And these maps are crazy blue. And these maps are really low quality. So it's all over the place. These ones are really red. So I just slapped on, and these ones are really blue again. Slapped on the color correction for that. Now let's go back into editing. And I'm going to place some of my Magic Bullet effects on there. So first I'm going to look up looks, so Magic Bullet looks. Slap that on here. It doesn't do anything. Let's go edit look. Oh, I should have picked a better frame. We are going to pick a better frame. That's gross. All right, so there's lots we can do in here, and let's play around with it. Let's see. Gradient exposure would just have like the top be a little brighter, which is sometimes I do that instead of normal exposure. You can see it goes crazy, but all you could do is maybe up it by 0.3. You can see before and after. It's very subtle, but it's something that's nice. Let's go back to tools. I'm still in subject here, but I think that's all I wanted for subject. Yeah, let's go to matte. A lot of people play with diffusion. I used to do that a ton in case like this kind of faded glow effect, but I'm not going to do that here. So nothing else in matte. Let's go lens. The lens vignette is one I am going to do in here, and this is one that I'm going to copy from the vendors Montage, CJ and Muggsy. They had it similar to something like this. If we hide tools, we can play with the strength of the vignette if I could find it. The amount right here, yeah. Maybe a little too much. Let's bring the amount to 50 and just keep it there for now. Back to tools, anything else I want here. Not in lens, let's go camera. I'm gonna add renoise. I like adding some noise over top of everything. I just find it's nice. Gonna keep it the way it is. We can add a shoulder, which just brings down anything that's blown out. This shot doesn't have anything, but it might be a little too strong because this shot doesn't have any good examples. Let's just keep it like that for now. So you can see that looks with Lux just slightly adding a little bit here. Really good shots. You can see before color correction, after color correction, very subtle. And now this is where we're going to get a little more crazy with it. I'm going to look up Magic Bullet Mojo. Slap that on. It's going to go crazy for a second. That's not really what we're looking for. It's also way too much. So let's find gameplay. So underneath Mojo here, we don't have a flat image. We have a video image. So we go to video. See, this is still pretty crazy. So we can go to light. See before, after. I think that is going to be our default color correction because I just wanted it to be slightly more saturated than regular. So before, after. And now we're going to go along the timeline and select individual sequences or clips that I want to tweak the color to. So this is fine. These ones are all fine here. That one's pretty crazy. It might be a little blown out. So what I'm going to do is, because it's all one clip, I'm just going to cut it. So I just have this one here. Click this and go into my color tab. Now I have a lens flare over top of this, so there's a lot stacking on top of each other. You can see there's no blacks, it's very high up. So let's go into our basic color correction, bring down the shadows slightly, bring down the blacks a little, and our highlights bring down slightly. Let's go back to editing. You can see before, after. Kind of like a little bit of it being blown out, so what we do, I'm gonna go back in, play with the color correction again. Let's put the highlights back up a bit. So we can stay in the color tab here. Let's go along. So now these ones, let's do an experiment. So these are crazy green. Obviously the map's gonna stay green, but if we bring down just the green, let's see what we can create. So you could go into curves here, find the hue saturation. I could grab this eyedropper and just pick a green spot and it makes me a mark here. You can see you can bring down just that section of the green. I mean, there's a lot of green, so we could bring it all down to play with it. So you could see, now that looks a little too saturated. Everything looks a little saturated, so I can go back to our regular one. Go to creative, instead of 65 on this, we'll go 45. This will go 109. So basically I'm just gonna keep playing with it over and over. Now I kind of like this, the lack of green. You see how crazy the green is here, but this might have been a little much. So let's just try it out on the actual gameplay. Let me go here and find my effects controls, grab it and copy it. I go over to the gameplay, and if I paste it on the gameplay, that's what it looks like. And I kind of like that. So regular, it's like very saturated, very green. And this one, we're just bringing down the green. Let's find where he snipes the guy and see if we see. So before, after, it's like not even changing here. Oh, it's because, yeah, it is on this clip. I have to copy it and bring it to this clip here, actually. So yeah, before, very green. And then I brought down the greens a bit. And personally, I like that. So I think that looks great. I'm not going to mess with that. This one's a little dark. Let's bring it up. Just comparison to like how bright this is. Click on, make sure I'm selecting that individual clip. Let's go back to here, bring up our scopes again. We can see it's very low, so we could bring up the shadows, because there's no midtones here. Bring up the whole exposure slightly. But I also don't want this too blown out, so I'll grab the highlights and bring that down a little. Now let's see if it looks better cut back to back. There's a little warping here from the motion blur on that single frame. That's gross, but we're gonna keep going. So yeah, it kind of goes from a bright clip to a darker clip here. Honestly, I think all the narrow stuff looks really good. So I'm not going to play with any of that. This shot I think I have played with before. If I go into effects controls again, if I can find it. Yeah, it looks like I have. It was dark and I made it brighter, so I kind of like, I did that preemptively before, just because this was a pretty dark shot. And then it cuts to this bright shot. So I was helping out a bit. I'm doing very basic color correction here. You can see you don't need to go into all the crazy masks. If I was doing this in DaVinci Resolve and I was getting really serious, I have a slight vignette mask around him where he was brighter, then that part would be faded. But I'm not going to worry about that for this montage. You don't really need to do that. But it does help lead the eye. So all this is very blue. I wanted to see, yeah, what these effects look like. Looks fine. It would always be fun if the Mojo was crazier. So again, remember we had light, we had Mojo. It only looks good during the middle of the effect. Let's go back to light. There's some crazy ones in here. Yeah, look at that. That was zeros, nothing. Okay, so now in Frosty's montage, anything on Eden, which is the name of this map, I always took down the blue. Now the sad thing is this video quality is very low. I think it's like 720p. You can see like the pixels here. The map angles look fine. Like those are high quality, but the gameplay is low. So what I'm going to do, we're going to try to cheat it a bit. So let's click on here. Oh god, that's gross. And let's bring up our scopes. Kind of all over the place. Definitely stretched out. You see the blues are at the top. So let's go curves. I wonder if we just bring down the blues everywhere. It just brings green. Hey, that's gross. Oh, that looks terrible. So instead of that, we're going to go into our saturation. I'm going to click on these blues. Let's do the same thing we did for the other clip. Let's bring it down so it becomes like a gray. Looks a little black and white because literally these shots are only blue and I'm bringing the blue down. It's kind of annoying. We could play with the hue of it, but I wouldn't. So it looks like the greens are kind of ugly in here. Let's go to our actual curves, find green. If I just bring that down a little, it's going to get purple. Now this map's really ugly and this footage is really low quality, so it's kind of annoying. Let's go into creative and we're going to fade up the blacks a bit there. I'm going to sharpen it a little because it looked gross. Oh man, this shot might just be ugly. Sad times. Let's bring up our effects controls and do before and after. So the regular shot and the after just like slightly tweaked it. Doesn't look that good, but we're going to see how it looks on the angles. I think the angles it looks great. before, after. Very subtle, but I like it a lot. Okay, so it did help it. The same thing I did for the Frosty montage, just brought down the blues. I mean, that one has a lot of effects going on, so that's just how it's going to be. Let's see. Yeah, that was the whole thing. Then we get into the pit. In the pit, we have lots of things blown out here. You can see it's way too bright. If I bring up my scopes, like these are almost all peaking. So what I'm going to do is select it and grab the highlights and bring the highlights down a decent bit. Let's copy that. Effect controls. I don't think the angles needed. It was just the gameplay. Yeah, the angles look fine. Okay, now I wanted to play with these ones because this is super red and see if we can do the same thing. Bring down the reds. It might look bad, but we're going to experiment with it. So let's bring up our scopes again. Always have your scopes and you're looking at everything. You can see there's no real blacks here. So what I might do is bring down the shadows slightly. Bring down the blacks just a little. But the main thing we want to do is go into curves. Let's grab these reds. See if I bring down the reds. Again, it's going to make it look a little black and white, which is annoying. Before it's super saturated, then bring down just the reds. Maybe I'll just half how much I brought it down. I really like this shot. Looks nice. So you can see the angles are more contrasty than the gameplay is, like the blacks are more profound. So I'm just going to click on split it so they're separated from the angles. I have to do that again because these angles here. Actually, the angle color correction looks great. So it is just the low quality gameplay again, you know. Xbox DVR, typical stuff that happens to everyone. Let's go here, just selecting this. What if I just go up on the contrast? Yeah, let's just do that. That way the contrast is closer to this. Yeah. So I'm going to copy that. Go over to this one, delete what there was on there. Place a new one. Now this is all preference and the style you're going for. I could keep it all super saturated, and really I do like the vibrant colors, but... And right? One of these looks really good. Where is it? I think it's just that shot looks pretty nice. I'm just going to rack focus it, have this in focus and that, and I'm like, oh, that's just so much masking because it's not a linear movement. It moves, like, zooms in and goes sideways. And honestly, this gets the effect too. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think that looks good. Now Halo 2. I kind of just like how blue the Halo 2 stuff is. I don't know if I really want to bring down any of the blues. The only thing might be on the gameplay. I could add more contrast. Actually, on everything, we're going to add a little contrast. So I did a little exposure and a little contrast. I think it looks pretty good, actually. Let's copy it over. I play a lot. I don't know if you notice, if you've been watching it, but with out of focus stuff, I find it's just kind of add something to it. Like, you didn't even, just a subtle out of focus back into focus and the guy's there. Did I copy the right one? Let's see, copy. Probably gonna be blown out a bit there. Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm gonna separate this and get a little more contrast on this one. It's very blown out. I mean, there's a effect going on, so that's what happens, but I probably gotta take the contrast off of this one because it's all one clip. That looks pretty good. We can keep it. Okay, here. Could bring up the scopes, but I know what they're gonna look like already. Yeah. So originally this was going to have him fall. You're the POV of him falling, and it fades to white. Then the reason I had this shot is it was a white light. So, but it was just too much of a bright white frame from this whole section, so I didn't think it looked good. So I had to fade to black. Now, really, I should maybe change this angle because it doesn't make sense fading from black into the light, but I don't mind it. Let me know if you guys think I should change that. I can definitely change that, but I don't mind it. So let's find where the darkest part is, or where the shadows are the lowest, which is right here. And let's grab our shadows and bring them down. Grab the blacks and bring them down a little too. Yeah, that looks much better. Right, these ones all look fine. I mean, that all looks fine too. I love these, like the slight out of focus in the background. Yeah, that all looks good. Halo 3 just looks good all around. Oh yeah, where I cared about it here. You could use a lot of color correction in your effects too, like changing. Because there's a part right here where it goes like that. Oh, I think that looks good actually. All the color correction is going to stay like that. Halo 3 just looks good. What I wanted was just like a crisper, cleaner color correction, and that's basically what this is. Oh, I love this angle. How nice that is. Picks up the gun. Snipes ace. Sorry, Aaron. Alright, Snowbound. Is it too blown out? Let's see. Gameplay looks fine. That might be a bit blown out. So what we're going to do is separate it again. Let's find where it actually starts. So right here. Now let's click on it. We already have these out, so we're going to grab our highlights and bring those down. I don't want to bring it down too much, kind of brings everything down, but let's grab the shadows and the blacks. I just want the blacks to kind of like touch the zero. Yeah, like that. Now I like always doing the before and after, so it gets annoying because I got to jump back into the controls, but before, after. Kind of liked a bit of the brightness, so I'm actually going to go back in here, grab the highlights and bring them up a bit. Almost look better being bright, but we'll keep it somewhat tame like that. And the gameplay all looks fine. We'll just have to see what the angles look like. Even with all the snow, it's not blown out, I can tell. I bring up the scopes, like it isn't hitting the 100, so it's a nice white. Then here you see it's up a little higher, so it's a little blown out on the angles. I don't know if it's because the angles are just higher quality footage, so it has more of a range and it's not as compressed as like the DVR footage is. Actually, this does kind of look a little blown out. Let's grab this. I should have focused more on that guy because that's the first one he snipes, but let's grab, not the exposure. I kind of like the exposure the same, so just grab the highlights again. Bring those down. Grab the shadows. Bring that down a little. So yeah, just subtle. It's hard with all white. I kind of just like how bright that one is. Now these ones, let's up the contrast because there is fog in front of them, so that might mess with it, but grab the shots. Let's make them separate actually, two different ones. Let's grab the contrast. It's mainly the shadows because it already has the white, so the shadows, bring it down. Bring it down a lot. Yeah, look how much different that looks now. All I did was bring down, as you can see, the shadows and up the contrast a bit. But it was really blown out with the fog and everything. Oh, wrong button. Before, after, just with that, using the same base color correction. And this one here, just kind of rinse and repeat. So do again a little bit on the contrast. It kind of has a lot going on here, so I don't know if I need to grab the shadows too much. Yeah. Let's keep it the way it is. Ooh, reach. I forgot there was reach in here. Let's try to give it some Avengers style color correction for reach. So for that I might cheat it. And even though there is magic bullet looks already on this adjustment layer, I might, that's a perfect frame for this, I might add looks to this as well. So, oh, I did want to hit effects, so I'm going to go back to editing once this thing freaks out because I clicked effects. Go looks, and see if I have the Avengers one saved. It'd be a cop-out if I do. Alright, slap that on there. So I don't have the Avengers one saved. Alright, I couldn't find it, so we're just going to make our own here. Just my old ones. Alright, let's start with this. And just play around with this one that I had from before. Just a vignette. Let's make the strength different here. Shoulder a little stronger. I don't know if I want the diffusion. I don't have it on any other ones. Looks like this one I took out the blue as well. I'm gonna slap that on. See if it stands out too weird. I think that looks good. So regular, color correction after. So I just grabbed an old one. I said denial or something like that from one of my old montages and tweaked it a bit. I'll open it up if you just want to see it again. So it looks like I just turned down the saturation. I did it here, when nowadays I would just do it in Lumetri. Added a slight diffusion. You can all see it there at the top. The vignette is all over the place. Edge softness, oh, I'm taking that off, not using that. I turned off this because I thought I made it too contrasty. I'm not even sure what the 3 stripe process is, but we'll keep it on there. And I made the shoulder a little stronger. I'm not sure where that's on there, so I have that one off. So you can see I have some of these turned off. So regular with it. I gotta turn down my audio because I had it turned back on. Alright, let's go here. That one's a little colorful. Let's bring down the yellows in this. So we don't need to, it's kind of an okay shot, but we're going to play with it anyways. Let's open up our color. Let's bring up the exposure a bit. Bring up the shadows slightly. Now let's grab a yellow. Oh, I moved everything down. There we go. The rest of it I'll probably keep. Just see how these last few angles look. That looks great. I'm not going to change that. Kind of like that one. I maybe have too strong of a blur going on there. Or not, sorry, not a blur. If I could speak. A lens flare going on. It looks fine. So now let's put on the color correction we used from before on this one. So let's go find. Now looking back at it, I might have turned it down too much. So we're gonna tweak it all. Let's grab this. This is our old color correction. Let's bring this up and that up. And we'll keep that as our new color correction. Let's open our effects panels, copy, and this is just for the plaza stuff. Let's grab this, delete the old one, paste on the new one. Now let's go find our ending shots. So it's just these two. Slap that on. Before, after. This one here is a little too overexposed. The highlights are a little too much. If we bring this out here, you'll be able to see with the scopes. It's a little high. Go into our regular, grab our highlights, just bring them down. Much better. Now that might be my color correction. So let me just play through it a few times and let's see if we're happy with it. Actually, what I'm going to do first is click on the overall CC, the one we did just to kind of quickly cover everything. It kind of looks cool actually. And I'm going to my effects. I wasn't blind. I think that was in looks, right? Where we had noise. I'm going to add a little more noise. So grain amount 50. Bring it up to 66. This is going to help us with some of the lower quality footage that's in here. The shoulder's way too strong. It's at 100. Let's put it to 60. Let's go 50. So you could just go through it and look at your scopes, but you don't have to always look at that. Like, this is very dark, I get it. But it's going to get brighter as it goes. That one's very bright. Might tweak it a bit, but that's probably the end of this episode. Just a slight color correction. I didn't want to take away from what the game looked like. I just wanted to add to it. You can see that's the regular game. That's with color correction. So no like real color grading, just the correction here. The only one was the reach clip. I really changed by quite a bit because reach is very ugly looking. Or at least it's grayish blue the whole time and not like a nice one like the way Narrows looks here. Took down the green in Plaza and took down the red. And both the Halo 5 clips got tweaked a bit. A little too much of that one color and not in a good way. Kind of like how bright that gets. So it is quite a contrast from that to that. It's just that one shot that's super bright. I like that a lot. I was gonna scratch my hand, but I didn't want to hit my mic, so I just lifted it up, blocked the camera. Okay, I think we're gonna call it there for the color correction. So that was this episode, and the next episode, which is the last one, which the montage might already be out by the time you're watching this, because if I finish it, I'm going to release it and have these videos come out afterward. But the last one would be, oh, the depth of field looks good, would be my sound effects, which is going to take up a whole thing here. I'll have to do a time lapse of it. I can't do kind of this one where I walked through it with the color correction. But usually you would do color correction last in like a movie or something like that. But for me, I want to see exactly what everything looks like, and then I'm going to render the entire video out, just like within Premiere. So that way I can play real time, no issues, as I place all the sound effects and ambiance noises in. Plan to have some fan noises there, the beach water noises there. Then most of it will just be gameplay, but I'll play around with that. So that has been this episode, and I'll catch you in the next one.
You paint a picture in my mind. You wanna leave it all behind. In a world that's turning all the time, nothing would stop me longing for your eyes. I won't let it die. I can feel you when you're not around. When the night gets cold, I won't be alone. We won't be This lake of fire burns my skin.